Hey, Bruce.
Sound check. Can you guys hear us out there?
I can, yeah.
Okay, just double check.
All right. So I'm up there.
Bruce, we're just doing a sound check. Can you speak so we can hear you?
I don't think he can hear you.
Alicia, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
We're just checking to make sure that we can hear you guys, and we can, so that's good.
Bruce is saying hello. I can see his mouth moving, but I can't hear him.
Microphone maybe on. On the left-hand corner, Bruce, there's usually a mute button. You can double check it and see if it's working.
Like I give up. Oh, he disappeared.
email Lottie or text?
Text. Alicia, were you talking to Bruce by chance?
Yeah, I just gave Bruce a call and let him know there was a phone number he could connect with for the audio, so he's gonna try that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Will we know when he phones in? He'll show up, right? Okay. Oh. Oh. It happened to Ryan at one point too. His disappeared. Your name tag. We should wait for Bruce to call in.
Let me put something.
Dave, we're gonna start while we wait for Bruce to figure it out.
Okay, yeah, we're good. He'll come on and come again. Yeah.
Okay,
So go ahead. So,
we're all set. We're gonna call the school committee to order for Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 5:42 PM. And we're gonna start with pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with our member introductions, starting with Ward 2.
Word 2, Ellen Philly.
Chairman Lewis Collins, Ward 3.
Jake Langmus, Superintendent.
Megan Perks, Chair and at-large representative.
Andy Whitlow, Ward 4, and Chair of the Negotiation. Leah Hawkins, Ward 5.
Ron Parker, Ward 6. Brian Donovan, Ward 7.
Bobby Erie, Chief Administrative Officer. Karen Paquette, Assistant Superintendent.
Alicia?
Okay, I couldn't tell if folks were done. Alicia Ray, City Council Representative and Parliamentarian.
I went all out of order with that. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm a little discombobulated. Agenda item number 3, to receive a COVID-19 update as it relates to Lewiston Public Schools.
So we've gone a week and a day, and we're still ironing some things out, as I've shared before, as we anticipated that we would. But I also think that while we're managing and growing and learning and doing things as well as we can from a district perspective, it'd be good to hear from our building leaders and the work that they're doing and the things that they're observing and picking up. So we have a number of areas to cover: operations, facilities, technology, and then we have a lot of administrators here who are able to come, and one via Zoom to share some things. So to put some order to things, I would like to start at the high school level and or grades 9 through 12. And I didn't know if maybe Director Callahan would kick us off from a perspective of LRTC, which is using a 4x4 schedule. And what that means is students are doing all of semester 1 with their LRTC program. And then in the spring, they'll be flipping to the other group of students who would go all spring, 4 days a week, as scheduled right now. And Mr. Callahan.
Can everybody hear? Well, thank you very much. As Superintendent said, we are off and running, and it's been a very positive and safe opening. I'm very proud of the work that our staff and our students have sort of engaged in to make that happen. As I'm sure you're going to hear from the different schools and areas this evening, there's been a ton of things that have gone in. We are very appreciative of the time the school committee set aside so that we could have that planning time. I think it was put to very good use. And I think what we're seeing is that we were allowed to organize things in a way that allowed kids to transition in a way that felt comfortable to them, but also allowed us to have the kind of certainty we needed that as we begin our work at LRTC, they are ready to go in a safe way. As Superintendent said, we have school, as you know, students from 6 area high schools that come to us every day. And what's interesting is this year, we've sort of flipped the schedule on its head to try to maintain a cohort which is nearly exclusive to the tech center, not completely, but nearly exclusive. We have students that are with us and have been with us in the past. These are our second-year students that would normally return to us and be with us every other day. They're with us every day from 7:45 to noon. And I've got to say, their willingness to sort of think differently about their schedule, for a lot of them, this means, for example, they're not going to go back to Poland High School or Edward Little High School or even Lewiston High School in some cases until January. So that was a big deal for them to think about school in a very, very different way. As much as they love what they're doing with us, I have to say they have responded really well, though, that where I thought we might be spending a lot of time dealing with people that had that bit of homesickness or had some concern about wearing a mask or doing the things that we need to do to distance ourselves, we've not seen that. Students have been very willing to do what needs to be done in order to conduct their work and go through their program experience at LRTC. We front-loaded the first week with, as we normally would anyways, but there was a great deal of training that we did with students on, things such as, just their daily self-check, to making sure they understood what it meant and when we needed them to do that and how we needed to report and so forth. Things like hand washing. We got our nurses to develop some protocols around that in the nursing program so that students all got to try out, what it looks like when it's done properly. Donning and doffing personal protective equipment. Again, something that we do in some programs, but everybody's doing it. So they understand how masks go on and off, how they're cleaned. Same's true with gloves and gowns and things of that nature. We're even talking about now, as we move forward a couple of days, into assessing workplaces like you would for an OSHA type visit, where you determine, is this area safe? Do I have the proper ventilation? Do I have the equipment I need, given the materials I'm going to be asked to handle and so forth? So that's sort of the next step, the laddering that we're going to be doing. We have had them engaged in moving around the building through using the signage that was developed through either the district or through our own multimedia shop. A lot of you have seen some of the spacers on the floor, the dots, the arrows. that came from our multimedia area. Thanks to our good colleagues in operations, Josh and his team and Bobby, we have abundant PPE, so we are ready in that regard. Students have what they need to do the work that they need. A lot of times, as you know, we can get messy, we get dirty, but the good news is that we have enough in stock so that we can replace it as needed, even if it's multiple times during the day. You know, if a kid has a mask that gets dirty or anything of that nature, we're replacing it, and we feel good about the stock we have. Just a couple of things that I'd like to mention that you know, as this is all developed, that I particularly feel pretty proud about. One is an award that is, you look out across the green ladle, you see the new food truck, and you're going to get a little bit of a introduction to that next week. We've invited Chef Karen to come and talk to you a little bit about that. But as you know, the green ladle over the March closure did a lot with preparing meals for seniors, veterans, and other folks in the community that couldn't get out. We were just recognized by the Maine Council on Aging, and we're going to receive a community partnership award. We're going to receive that tomorrow. Chef Karen and I will accept that virtually at a ceremony they're holding. So that you know, something to really be proud of. As we look around the district itself, we have dividers, hand wash stations, and things that our folks in the carpentry and the trades areas help with the operations team in either building or assembling and distributing through the district. And then again, the signage. Some of the stuff is really creative. I think, you know, some of our schools have banners. I know they all have their logos in different spacers and things like that. You'll see around the dragons here at Connors, for example, that our multimedia teacher and her students, Jess Dewin is her name, were able to, you know, to get creative with and have some fun with, and also do a lot of tedious work, cutting 800 blue dots out of a sheet for Montello School. It loses its luster after a little bit. So, but I guess I would just say, you know, in wrapping up, that we, I think, have had to step back and rethink just about everything that we do, even the simplest things like we were watching a bread making demonstration today. The number of students that can be within, you know, proximity to each other, it requires us to do things differently, to move traffic differently around our shops. You know, the way that we give kids breaks, the way that we, again, use space in classrooms versus space in shops has been different. But I think that's been a good thing. It's challenged our teachers to think about, you know, why are we doing this to begin with? What are we hoping to learn from it? And the good news is, I think, you know, it's really produced some thoughtful instruction, some professional inquiry and exchange in our teachers that I'm really proud of the fact that they've stepped up and engaged in it. And I also think it says a lot about the students that we have in here in Lewiston, that they have embraced it. They've understood that it's a challenge. And again, I worry about the lessons any student will leave us with. But in looking at the other day, a group of our students from the TradesWorks area that decided in their downtime outside, they would replant. If you notice our little white sign by the end of our bus area, they ripped out all of that bed. They redid it together. But again, it was a student project. They did plantings and put down some loam and some bark mulch. It was just a very positive sign. You know, this was not asked, this was not assigned, but they did it of their own volition, of their own interest. But they did it in a way that's going to be acceptable, you know, in the constraints that we're operating with these days. So that's the report from LRTC. Questions?
So we're going to actually, in order to make this more flow better, if anyone has any questions from any of the presenters, if you could just write them down, and then we'll ask all the questions at once everybody has had a chance to present from each school.
You know, some administrators have obligations tonight, so if they have to leave, and if they're, me, Karen, or Bobby can't answer, we can certainly find you the answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Principal LeBlanc, would you mind coming up next? And while he's coming up, having an email from Director Grant from Adult Education. And he said that Adult Education has been offering in-person testing since June. Our summer semester remote classes ended in August with a mix of participation. This has led to our academic and workforce staff re-engaging learners that have had difficulty with accessing distance learning. Adult Education has recently acquired over 80 devices, including laptops and Chromebooks, through state and CRF funding. and teachers are providing orientations to re-engage learners and assist with digital literacy and equity. Community education and enrichment programming have some low enrollments at this point, but I think that that's representative of the community's feelings about gatherings. And Bill said he'd like to send some shout outs to everyone in Lewiston Adult Ed, but a special shout out to Damian Provost, who's the Longley building custodian. He's ensured a healthy work environment all summer with adult ed students in the building. And Damian consistently goes above and beyond being a positive part of all the programming in the building. So Bill Grant couldn't be here tonight because he's got some obligations in the other district in Auburn. But I'll share that with you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm really pleased to report to you that the opening of the high school has really gone quite smoothly. As many of you know, I've done this for many, many years, and I've been in a lot of high schools. Well, not a lot, but a few. And I can't say where the issues that we had to deal with the opening of school were significantly different this year than they've been in others. Some of the details have been different, but quite honestly, school for a week and a day has gone pretty well. I've been pretty pleased with that. We've looked at our enrollment because we're really concerned that this situation might cause a significant enrollment issue for us. Right now, we're looking at 1,477 students, which is just about where we should be. There may be a few students that we haven't presently accounted for, but I'm pleased with the fact that through one of the cohorts, whether it A, B, C, or D, we can account for just about every student that we should be able to have to account for. The in-building enrollment at the high school during the day is, of course, significantly different than it would be in a regular year. On cohort A days, we have about 521 students in that cohort. And then there's another 190 on the other side of the building in LRTC. On cohort B days, we have 497 students in the building. So you can see those two cohorts are pretty balanced. And again, the same 190 students are on the other side of the building. We do have 269 students who are in cohort C, who are taking their education remotely. And that number totals up to the 1,477. One of the things, when I took the high school this year, I told the staff I had three primary things given the circumstances that I wanted to deal with. The first one would be safety. The second one would be make sure that we were engaging students effectively in teaching and learning. And the third one, try to look at the social emotional well-being of everybody involved, students, staff, and everybody else. Safety, I am pleased to say, has really gelled a lot better than maybe my nerves might have caused initially. And that's because, in my opinion, this has been an incredible team effort, all the way from the superintendent's office right down to the high school staff at every level, all kinds of people working on this. And I think the thing that I would say is it's not perfect, but boy, it's a lot safer than people would imagine, and maybe a lot safer than it's been in the past. I'm really pleased where that's gone. We have a lot of people to thank, Bobby's office, Josh, all the PPE stuff that we needed. And, more than having to have that stuff in place, that has an impact on morale, teacher morale. It has an impact on people's feeling of well-being and safety. And we got that stuff in the building, and we got it distributed thanks to the folks in central office in a timely enough fashion. And I know Josh had a few hurdles he had to overcome. You order something and then the supplier says it's not there. But I had some people on my staff, Todd Cifelli, Mark Sawyer, and Missy Gendron. They worked really hard to get that out to the teachers' classrooms. So when school started, we we had a pretty safe environment for teachers and kids. And that worked really, really well. The custodial staff at the high school were part of that team effort as well. I need to tell you, I have dealt with high school students my whole career, except for the 8 years that I was at Montello School. And a lot of people get nervous when you talk about high school students and their behavior. But I want you to know I've been pleasantly surprised with the conduct of our students and their cooperation, their compliance with mask wearing, distancing, hand sanitation. To date, we really have had no issues, which really has pleased me. Students have been very cooperative. I would dare say at the high school level, the most difficult thing is social distancing. If you can't remember, high school is about getting a high school education, but it's an incredible social experience for students. And for them to not social distance is difficult. They're doing a really pretty good job at it. I'm pleased with them. The other thing is I can't say enough good about our teachers. They've prepared their classrooms to meet CDC and DOE guidelines. We've walked around the building and checked. They've done an outstanding job. And, you know, beyond just the classroom, I need to say that I'm so impressed with our teachers, the work they've done to try to develop engagement with students in an environment that is really, really difficult. I taught in a hybrid model at the college level for 3 years. And even with college students are motivated, it is hard sometimes to get that kind of engagement. And our teachers, I felt, have been really, really diligent about that. We've distributed about 1,400 computers to date. Some of our students still had some. There's still some to be distributed. And a lot of that goes thanks to Dave Terrio and his group. They got all those computers up and ready for us. Jay Dufour, the assistant principal at the high school, managed that distribution. We had a pickup spot outside the high school where people could come. They could kind of like a drive-through pickup for their computer. And just to show you how seamless this was, our librarians worked with our teachers to get textbooks that kids were going to need, bundled them together, hooked the name of the books and the computers together. So when a kid came through, they could get not only their computer, but their textbooks they need. Is that kind of cooperation and teamwork that's really made the opening pretty good. I also need to thank the curriculum office and central office, Karen and Sue, all the work they've done. You know, so much of that is filtered down into the building and professional development. And I will tell you folks, I've been doing this about 43 years. And the professional development that we've done with our teachers this year to prepare them for the classroom, a hybrid instruction. I'm not going to look at you and say it's been perfect, because nothing is, but boy, it's been pretty darn good. What we started out with from central office was a good product, and I've been very fortunate to have some outstanding people in my building, 2 teacher coaches, Georgia Valley and Tammy Thibodeau, and one of my assistants, Kirsten Crafts, who really took that information and really worked closely with teachers. It's been, that's been, I think, a very positive experience for teachers and for our school. I've had the opportunity, one of the things I like to do is I like to be in the building a lot. And so I've probably visited, I'm going to say, 70 different classrooms over the last week, and been really pleased to get into classrooms and see the smiles on teachers' faces because they're engaging with kids. Really positive sign. People are happy to get back at the process of teaching and learning. And that, in my mind, really conveys itself into a positive learning environment. One of our other at the high school, you know, one of my jokes with my colleagues is that one of the reasons I always get asked the question, why does the high school always have to be different? And it's because we are. You know, I've been at the elementary level, and one example is our schedule. You have to imagine if we've got 1,400 students, we're trying to get a schedule that works for 1,400 kids, 110 staff members, in probably a little bit around 100 spaces. Caitlin Urgis, our director of guidance, did all the work on that. She did an outstanding job. And quite honestly, our schedule came out really good considering all the limitations. Jason Fuller, the athletic director, He's had probably the biggest roller coaster ride of his life with all the changes at the state. But Jason's done a good job of organizing athletics. And right now, if nothing changes, we've got a fall season where we're going to allow our kids to compete. Liam Myers is the special education director at the high school. And I'm sure you know we have some staff that have accommodations to work remotely. And Liam had the biggest group to work with. And he's shown me that he's an incredibly good problem solver. We've managed to staff our classrooms so that we can meet all of the special education regulations and give our kids the support they need. And a lot of that is due to Liam's work. He did a really good job with that. We got some issues that are out of the box stuff at the high school, and the same probably with the other schools. As you know, school nutrition, we're not using the cafeteria, and all our lunches and breakfasts are grab and go. Alyssa Roman and her staff has done a great job. We met a couple times, worked cooperatively. We've given them the school store during the day so they can continue to do a la carte. Her staff is out there, and that has gone surprisingly well. And I also need to thank Alyssa and Don Rancourt for the bus stuff. That's just like the schedule. It's very difficult because it impacts the elementary and the high school level, and it all has to match. And we've had some issues, but no more than we do on a normal opening. There's some silver linings in all of this as well. I think Rob mentioned one of them a little while ago. When you make the change to a hybrid environment from a traditional high school, it's a huge change. It really is. But what it did is it caused us to have to review almost all of our practices and policies and procedures and make adjustments to meet the needs of teachers, kids, parents, and everybody else. And that's probably a pretty healthy task. We probably ought to do that every single year, but obviously we don't. But that's been very positive. A significant effort by central office and instructional support staff at the building level really has led to a lot of new skills for our teachers. So out of the need to make this change, a lot of our teachers have gained a lot of new skills that are not only applicable to this environment, but will be applicable in the future as well. Our buildings have all undergone significant review of the instructional spaces to make sure that they're suitable for instruction. The school health services have developed new protocols and practices for dealing with kids. And that, I kind of look at it this way, the CDC and the DOE guidelines, there's something in education we call a teachable moment. It's when something happens and you go, hey, here's a situation and we can make it a teachable moment. And one of the things the CDC and the DOE guidelines have done, at least for me as a building principal, is it's given me an opportunity to teach our students about social responsibility. A lot of this we look at as being safety, but it's much social responsibility, our responsibility towards others. And it's not something that we often talk about or have an ability to teach, but here's a real life example how all of us have to wear masks, sanitize our hands, and distance because it's a social responsibility issue. It's a responsibility we have to others. Great teachable moment. And then I feel, quite honestly, I hope I'm not wrong, but due to everything that's happened, if we had to go remote, and I hope we don't, we had to go full remote, I think at the high school, I think we could pull it off. I really do. I think the changes and the training we've made have put us in a position of power. And what I mean by that is that I don't think if that happened, we would fall like a house of cards. I really don't. I think we could step up and meet that challenge quite well. There are some challenges. Providing both synchronous and asynchronous instruction at the same time is a bit of a challenge. A lot of folks who have their children in cohort C did not quite understand what asynchronous instruction would look like. A lot of them have turned their computer on and expected to see the teacher on the screen teaching, and that's not the way it works. That's been a little bit of a challenge, and we've had to work with parents in that way. Having all the additional technology, as you know, I'm sure David and others have told you, we're still waiting for our shipment. Typically at the high school, we have enough to give everybody. We have spares in the classroom. So all of a sudden now you get a kid who has an issue where their computer breaks or something. We don't have a lot of spares to support that situation. So until our new computers come in, that's a little bit of a challenge for us. The other thing is providing all the support that special needs students need, whether it be special education or ELL. Because their support is so specialized, this is a bit of a challenge for us. And then maintaining the enthusiasm and the engagement of students in a remote environment is a challenge. I just want any parents or guardians or students that may be watching this tonight, if they need support, I got people at the high school ready to support them. I encourage them to call, whether it's computer technology, distance education, a scheduling problem. If they call the high school, we'll direct them to the person that they need to help. And I guess my parting words are, based on my experience at LHS since July, I remain highly optimistic that we have the capability to endure this challenge, not only to our society, but in particular to our schools. The teamwork that I've seen in this district, as an outsider coming in, the kind of quality of work I've seen by everybody from the top down has been outstanding. And it's made my job a lot easier. And as I said, it's made me a lot more optimistic about where we can go from here. So that's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Mr. Terrio, Sarah Sims would be sharing next about Next Step and Impact Academy. And there she is.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for letting me join in. I'm really excited to be able to come speak with you. So I'm the director of the Longley School campus, which houses both the Next Step and the Impact Academy programs. We have both cohorts A, B, and C at Impact, and then Next Step houses cohort D. So there's a wide range of different student needs and different activities going on in regards to meeting those student needs. It has been an incredible opening. I have to say that the staff, the students, the parents, the community, the district support has just been through the roof. The way that people have come together to make sure that the things we needed, the professional development, all of those components in regards to making sure the hand sanitizer and masks and PPE pieces are all definitely in place. And the students have been amazing at just understanding that this is what we're doing now, and we have to do this to be safe so that we can come together. And there's a real general feel in the air of just wanting to connect, that connectivity to each other, to their teachers, to kind of get back into a swing of things, to make things feel just like they should be. And it's exciting and it's interesting. We're all writing history right now with doing things that we never thought we would be able to do. And it's an honor to be a part of that when you have such an amazing staff and parents and school community and central office supporting you along the way. So it's been really smooth and seamless. There's always those things you're working out, but it's been incredible. Feedback from parents and students have supported that. I just have to really give a massive shout out to the staff. They have gone above and beyond to really do so much for the students, to really connect with them, to help guide them through the rationale behind why we're doing these things, to do the trainings and really take the time to set that up, while also supporting students' social emotional learning components of the things that they've experienced while they weren't with us, and how do we reconnect, and how do we learn to read the eyes now that we can't see the full facial expressions. And so it's been really positive for them. And I think that speaks a lot to just the dedication that all of these teachers and our families all have. Lessons have been exciting and in full swing. Students are definitely in this blended learning model where we're in person, some at home, and some students all at home. And they're incredible. What our teachers learned to do in Google Classroom hasn't stopped. I think it's actually inspired them to go beyond that and learn more and different things. And they're reaching out and they're grabbing other different pieces. And our technology department keeps supporting us with different ways to reach and branch out. And that's been beautiful. So going in and seeing that and watching students engage in that and seeing how education isn't stopping just because we're learning from home home, but it's continuing and it's still engaging them deeply into the content has been incredible to see. And it's been exciting. It's definitely something I think we all know is a great teaching technique, but to see it in action is just absolutely fantastic. So it's been really, really interesting. So like I said, everything has been absolutely wonderful. That those lessons today, I would love to share that. My English teacher was doing a lesson on blackout poetry, and I'm in there and I just pop in and the students are reading them out loud, and then they're talking about how it was making them feel, and they're still connecting with all of these pieces, the social distancing, they're making it work and they want to make it work. We've had absolutely zero issues with any concerns with any of that safety components. Everybody's been right on board with it. So it's been a beautiful opening. People are always welcome to call the school at Longley with questions. We would definitely love to support that. Like I said, there's definitely been a couple technology hiccups that we've had to deal with logins, but all of that's been easily ironed out. And everyone's just been so supportive from the central office standpoint and helping us do that. So it's just been collaborative from top to bottom, from throughout the summer, moving forward. Again, we couldn't do it without our parents. We couldn't do it without the community. We can't do it without our staff. We certainly can't do it without the students and of course the support from central office. So just a huge shout out to everyone for all you're doing, because it was amazing. It's just been beautiful. And even opening Impact with that new program, it felt seamless and it felt like we've been here forever. And that's a great feeling. And when everybody feels positive and strong, everything that trickles down to what we're doing in our classrooms. So I just can't thank everybody enough. And of course the school committee as well for supporting us as we've done this and we've done the unimaginable. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sarah. While LMS Principal Jenna Mates is making her way to the podium, I want to share a note from Wendy Burgoyne, who is the head nurse for our district. So she works with all of our nurses, but she's also the middle school nurse. And she said, I asked her if she would be willing to share something. She said, from the nurse's perspective, things are moving along and we have had amazing support from our administrators with all of the changes and procedures in our office. We have sent home students when appropriate based on the flow chart and follow up with any students that might have a yes answer to the screening questions. We're being diligent in checking on absent students that might be out due to illness to find out more information. And from where we stand in the new normal, we feel it has gone very well. The only thing that seems to be a sticky situation is the pre-screening questions at the elementary level. Some of the nurses feel that it might not have been made clear enough to the parents to pre-screening at home and keep students home if they are not feeling well. And so just for those of you watching, or I know this is recorded, again, just to remind people to make sure you're looking at that pre-screening document that went home with every student and was shared electronically and on a piece of paper. Make sure you're looking at those symptoms. And if you have any of those symptoms for the major, that if you have one, you stay home. If you have any two of the less common symptoms, you should stay home and you should be reaching out to your school nurse or your administration to let them know that your student is home with those symptoms. And it's like it was mentioned earlier, that social responsibility. This is how we keep everybody else safe and healthy as well. So, Ms. Mates.
Thanks. Good evening. We fully realize that every day that we are in person is a gift to our teachers and our students, and nobody is taking that for granted. From the week before school started, when we did our laptop deployment, we had tables set up outside the building where teachers could meet with the families and connect and help them get logged in. So especially our cohort B students knew exactly what they were doing the days they weren't there. Just to give you a little bit of a rundown, we have about 770 students at the middle school. Currently, 164 of them have opted to learn remotely. That leaves 600 students in our hybrid model. Those are split into cohort A and B with about 300 students in each cohort. Those 300 that we see for the 2 days are split among 6 teams. So that averages about 50 students per team, split among 7 teachers per team. So our class sizes are between 7 and 8. So when we talk about the silver lining and the positives, a class size of 7 or 8, you can really get a lot accomplished in that hour and a half you have with students. And if you're really intentional about that instruction and front loading the days that they are home, they're able to do what they need to do. I think one of the biggest accomplishments at the middle school, we pulled off an additional team, a seventh team, not just seventh grade, but a seventh team called ELMS. And it is staff and students who are all learning remotely. We felt like it was really important for the students who are learning remotely to have staff that were also learning remotely so they could fully understand what each other are going through and support each other through that process. Some shout outs. I wanted to shout out to my administrative team. Each of them brings a different skill set that balances each other out. It's a really well functioning admin team at the middle school, and I'm very grateful for that. Our staff has done an amazing job connecting and communicating with families. That was the biggest piece of feedback that we heard in the spring, to really make sure that we were communicating with families so they knew what to expect. And so we've made that our number one priority the first couple weeks. We feel like, similar to Principal Blank was saying, that we have done a really good job getting our students connected and really front loading the training that they're going to need if we do go remote, and or for the days that they are learning remotely at home. And our staff, they've shifted the style of teaching that many of them have known for a long time, and they've embraced that and they're excelling at it. I want to do a big shout out to the middle school students. They have been more mature and resilient than any of us could have probably asked for. I think, similar to us, it's just really good to see each other again. No issues, completely compliant with the masks and the social distancing. Again, I think similar to the high school, it's human nature. I mean, I have to stop myself on a regular basis from hugging. We do a lot of air hugs and just letting people know that it's really great to see them. Some individual shout outs. Our tech department, Chris Galasso and Sarah Irish, they have done more over the last few months to get our staff and students prepared. Again, that's not my thing. And so to be able to rely on them has been amazing. Also, our athletic director, Chris Roy, like, being an athletic director during this time and balancing supporting what we know kids needs, but also making sure that they're staying safe is a challenge. And he has done an amazing job with that. And then Joel Brooks, our head custodian, and his team have also done an amazing job making sure that the middle school is safe and ready to receive students. Lastly, I just wanted to thank the school committee and the Dingley staff for trusting us enough to let us do our thing, because we're doing it and it's going really, really well. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Winslow, principal at Farwell. I went around the building today and I asked a couple people how they thought things were going. They replied with amazing. It's going way better than they had anticipated. We are seeing that that's sort of the trend. You know, before school started, everyone was really nervous, really stressed, really anxious about how things would go. And then once the kids walked in, it just became school just like we know it. It was really nice to get to see the kids, and there's nothing like seeing pre-K students and kindergarten students come in with their masks on and ready to learn. So today was a really good day. At Farwell, we have about 160 students in cohort A, about 160 students in cohort B. We have about 90 students in cohort C, and then we have a couple students in cohort D as well. This situation has asked us to be really creative in how we meet the needs of our students. I had teachers who willingly had to change the grade level that they teach about 3 days before we started back for our professional development time. I have a couple teachers teaching multi-grades, and that hadn't been done at Farwell before. I've also collaborated with Amber at McMahon. We have a Farwell kindergarten teacher who's teaching all the remote kindergartners from McMahon and Farwell. And then we have a McMahon first grade teacher who's teaching the remote first graders from Farwell and McMahon. That's brought about some challenges, but we felt it was really important for those grade levels to stay together at the kindergarten and first grade levels. As far as safety is concerned, we spent a lot of time before, thanks to you for giving us those 14 days with staff. So we spent a lot of time really preparing. Teachers are teaching students how to do their hand washing, how to properly take off their masks, how to stay separate. We have we're the Farwell Bobcats, so we have Bobcats painted outside. And that is one thing that I wish we would have done sooner. We just never thought of it. It's really easy to say, go ahead and stand on a Bobcat paw, while you wait for your ride. So some of the procedures are really nice that we've implemented. Another thing we've done is we have recess zones. So classrooms stay in their zone at recess time, and it keeps the groups small. It gives students the ability to take their mask off and still stay 14 feet apart from one another while they're playing outside. I would say the energy and the excitement has really increased now that kids are back. People are doing things that they never imagined they would have to do in education. A teacher said to me today, I'm living in week 2. I'm making the photocopies I need to send home with students for week 3, and I'm already planning for week 4. So that's just a level of preparedness that we've never asked our teachers to do. And they're pulling it off, and they're pulling it off amazingly. I really want to thank all of, I know this may sound really cliche, but this could not have been done without everybody banding together and coming together. It really took a village to pull this off. There's not one person who works for Lewiston Public Schools that is doing exactly what they did 8 months ago. We've all had to take on new challenges, and I'm really proud to say that it's going very well.
Hello, everybody. I'm Amber Eliason. I'm the principal at McMahon Elementary. So my morning started off quite interesting when I found out that one of our students had tested positive for COVID-19. And the thing is, the prep work that you've heard, Gus and Amanda and all of that talk about, that happened all summer, and the hours of planning really paid off. I knew exactly what to do, exactly who to call, exactly where that child had been, who she had been in contact with, or they, and I just knew everything what to do. So all of our safety procedures and protocols, I feel, really paid off. All the families have been communicated with that were in close contact with that student. The message went out to the community from the superintendent, and so it was lots of phone talking and things like that. But I feel really confident that our students are safe, and that all of the measures and planning that we did are the result is that they are safe. The pre-screener worked, the student wasn't in school for very long, all of those parts. So while it wasn't pleasant by any means, I did feel absolutely prepared. And also, in a school as big as ours, it really narrowed it down to 9 kids and an adult, because of how rigorous we've been with exactly where you need to be, what the procedures are, where you can go, and all of those pieces. So I'm really proud of our staff. I'm really proud of our students. Everyone's following all of the rules, the distancing, the guidelines. Even kindergarten is figuring it out, and how to measure the squares on the tile in the classrooms really help, because if you can count 6, you're 6 feet apart. So lots of things like that. We have tiger paws similar to bobcat paws out front to line up for distancing as well. A few things that have really been awesome to see that I want to continue to do is we have picnic lunches for lunch. We use the front of the school as long as the weather's working with us, and we have a side of the school too. So we have little color-coded crates for each class, and the kids are spaced out and they can enjoy some social time that's safe and outdoors. And we also have this fabulous property at McMahon that is this nature trail. And there are, for any McMahon students watching, there are now little painted Halloween rocks that are spread out throughout the nature trail, thanks to Member Whitlow and her son, who have hid them there for us to find. But we have a partnership with the city, and the property is right there. We have a teacher who really invested a lot of time with her class last year, and they developed a whole nature trail website, which is on our McMahon website, that has learning ideas and activities for the outdoor classroom and all kinds of stuff that can be done out there. And it's been getting a lot of use during the workshop time. Some training with how to teach on the nature trail and how to integrate outdoor learning happened. That teacher, Maggie Hutchinson, proud of you, trained several of our staff in that. And then we also have a school garden that we are going to be expanding, and the students have been using that more, and really just thinking about how we can, do engaging learning in these new times. The challenges, I think, definitely for me, mostly have been around the tools and the supplies at elementary level. The challenges of not having one-to-one computers and thinking we were going to, and then not, and then, just lots of pivots. Even my, crayon order is still not here yet, so we can do the best we can. So that's been a challenge, but I can tell you that my staff, my students have just rolled with it and have been resilient. Super proud of them. We will be open tomorrow. We are, I encourage anybody, from the McMahon community that wants to talk to me, you're welcome to call the school. I'm happy to. We want to make sure that you are informed and have answers to your questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Gish. I'm the principal at Geiger Elementary School. One of the positives, I've always loved the first day of school, and we've kind of got to live that 3 times now with cohort A, cohort B, and today with kindergarten and pre-K. So it's kind of been a little bit like Groundhog Day. We just keep redoing that first day of school. So that's been a lot of fun. It was pretty funny that the kids will show up and they're like, do you know who I am? Like, they don't think we know who they are with their mask on. And I'm like, I know who you are. So that's cute. The kids have been amazing. They really are doing a great job following the protocols. I don't think it's any different from high school and middle school. I think the social distancing is definitely the hardest piece. And we just keep reteaching, modeling, practice, repeat. And they're getting there. So every day is a little bit better. But they're wearing their masks, they're hand washing, they're sanitizing on the way in, the way out, throughout the day. So that's been great. Positives, I like Gus was saying, I love to be in the classrooms. I've been in all of the classrooms, even our remote classrooms. It's been nice to be able to, we have a lot of our remote teachers that are working out of the building. So I've been able to pop into some of their Zoom sessions. Our new platform for the elementary school is amazing. Seesaw, if you haven't checked it out yet, I encourage you to do so. I've been on there a lot and commenting on kids' work. One thing that I've noticed in that, that's a huge shout out, is our level of family engagement. We have 3rd graders that were interviewing parents on there about how they use math in their everyday life. And that has just been so awesome. Like, it's a whole new level of family engagement, like just brought to a different place. So that's been awesome. We had over 91% of our families that came to our open house. And those that didn't, we were able to reach maybe the week after or so. So a huge shout out to our families. This has been like really stressful on families this whole time, trying to figure out daycare, how to help their students at home, when they're going to do that stuff. And I can't say enough positive about our families, just how positive and patient, and they've just been awesome. They've just been so great to work with. Like Gus had said, I put a few things out at the beginning of the year that were really important to me. First one being safety. The second, engagement, academic and social engagement. In that limited time that we have face-to-face with kids, whether that's face-to-face on Zoom or face-to-face in person, to really make that high quality and a really high level of engagement for kids. And then the last thing was collaboration. And I feel like our staff just took that to a whole new dimension. So my goal was really that grade level collaboration and really planning together, because they really need to support each other this year, because they are doing things that they haven't done before. But what I saw was it's been like cross grade level collaboration and across the district collaboration, and they're helping each other out, and they're giving each other ideas, and they're sharing different ways to do things. And that has just been so awesome. Teachers that are teaching remote, that they know that, you know, this teacher has the siblings. If they're making a trip to the home, they're checking in with the other teachers to see if anything else needs to be delivered. So they're just working so well together. One of the challenges we've been facing, and I know that we're going to be talking about that coming up soon at a management team meeting, is just tracking attendance. Kids are present for parts of the remote, but other parts they're not. So kind of how do we track that in Power School, and how do we manage that piece? So that's been a little bit trickier. The first week was tricky just because some kids didn't have their devices yet or didn't have hotspots. So just working with families on getting that going has taken a lot of time. Biggest shout out goes to our staff all the way down. And across the district. So our teachers, our ed techs, our nutrition staff, our custodial staff, everyone at Dingley, just everyone that has made this happen, because it really did take everyone to make this happen. I wish we had something easy like a paw print to paint outside, but we have an alligator. That's made it a little trickier. But they're great. Second day of school, they're like standing on their little spots outside, and they already like following those new protocols. And we've had to think outside the box this year. And a lot of things that we've done, we're like, why haven't we always done it that way? So there's things that we're doing now that we're going to continue to do even after all of this. But this has really forced us to look at things in a different way and to try to make things a little bit more manageable. As far as who to reach for families and who to go to if they need help, I would always start with the classroom teacher. And if that's not working for some reason, or you need more help, call the office. We're always there to help. We've been troubleshooting every morning. My secretaries are great at getting people logged into Seesaw and Zoom now. So just give us a call and we will work with you to make it work. So thank you to all of you for making this happen and letting us have this opportunity. It's been amazing. It's so good to see the kids. And trust me, those parents were super happy to drop their kids off this week. So thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Don Ferrara. I'm the principal here at Connors Elementary. I guess I'd like to start with saying, how our makeup looks like here. We have about a third of our students that are in the cohort C. So we have one class at every grade level that is completely remote. And we have a teacher that's associated with that that's also completely remote. And one of the greatest things I've seen from that is those folks reaching out to each other. This year has been unlike any I've had in the 20 years, that I've been doing this. And to walk by classrooms and see teachers in working with other teachers has been one of the greatest things to see as a result of where we find ourselves. Many times as I'm walking down the halls now, I will see a teacher in another teacher's room helping them with something that, last year we wouldn't even have been doing. So with that strength pushes us forward. The energy that we have comes from that. I've had many teachers come to me, excited about what this year holds, while at the same time, honest about their fear about what this year could bring. So for me, I look at all the folks that I've been speaking with, and I'm amazed at the courage that they show. And that's from parents right down to students. Parents have to have a lot of courage to give us their children in a time where they know there's danger in the world, right? So our job and in our safety is what gives them that drive to do that. And we've been set up very well for that. I feel very confident that whatever would come our way in the building here, my staff, my teachers, right down to my custodial folks, would know exactly what to do and put the proper protocol in place to keep folks safe and to move us forward. So with that, I'd like to thank my assistants. There is no way that any person does this without strong support. I look around this room, every single employee that's in this room, I have asked for something of this fall. And to a person in this room, every person has come back more than what I could ever expect. Our start of the year, therefore, is more than I ever thought that it would be. We've come out of the gate very strong. Our teachers are in a good place. While there's still some anxiety about that, which is normal, our teachers are ready to push forward and do really hard work. We have asked a lot of our teachers in these last 4 weeks. And to a person, again, they have all responded as the true professionals that they are. Anything I've asked of any of my staff, they're willing to do. And they're willing to give it their all. It's not just doing it and going through the motions, it's doing it to a level that is far beyond even my expectations. I send out emails all hours of the night. I'm a night guy. So I may send something out at 11 o'clock. 2 minutes later, my phone dings. Somebody answered it because they're up doing those same things. So the commitment that folks are putting in is tremendous. Our families have been also tremendous. We've asked a lot of folks that may not have a lot of technological strengths, but they've come to the school, they've sat with us, they've allowed us to take them through that to understand what they need to do for their child. And as a result now, we have an open communication. Even as admin, I'm on a couple of different chat groups that have made us, I think, more transparent and able to share information better than in the past. We really didn't have that. It's made us stronger as a team. So as we move forward, my hope is always for safety first, and then to bring our children the best education we can, to give them that value. So as they move on from us to the middle school and to the high school, they've got that base set and they have a nice foundation to build upon. As we move forward as a building, I would like to see, as we open up more, that we're able to give more of that to our students. Facilities, Josh, I want to specifically call out. Anytime I need anything, anytime that we've had to have a pivot, Josh is right there. David, the same thing. And I know that we ask a lot of these folks and our expectations are really high for these folks, but they have stepped up for everything that our staff has needed. So as parents, and I would ask all the parents that are watching, if you have any concerns or questions you need answered, call me directly. I'm glad to take those calls. I will get people into the places where they need to be so that their questions can be answered. With that, I would say thank you for the time you've given us. It was well spent. The extra time allowed our folks to get in a place where they are now able to move forward and with that, bring the best they can to our students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Jim Cliff, principal at Montello School. I know you don't recognize me behind the mask after so many months away. I really don't have much more to say than what's really been said tonight. The opening of school has far exceeded my expectations. It was just awesome to be back in front of students, and scary and awesome at the same time. And so it's gone really smooth, all things considered. I think the things that haven't been smooth are the same things that aren't smooth on any year, and that might be a short notice on a bus change for a student, making sure we've got our youngest kiddos going to the right places after school, making sure we get kids in on those first days of school, and for those jittery parents, making sure that we're being warm and welcoming to them. My shout outs would be the same. The staff, the central office staff and the supporting staff of technology and facilities has been amazing. I've been at Montello now for 14 years, and I can tell you that in my 14 years at Montello School, the custodial team that is there right now is the strongest and most high-functioning team that's been there since I've been there. They have been awesome, which has put us in a really good place. And we've learned some couple lessons along the way that I just think will make us stronger as we move forward and get into future years. Just really quickly, Montello's overall enrollment is down from previous years. So I'm used to having upwards of 700 or more students in the building at any one time. So this is a really strange year with an enrollment of shy of 600 right now, and 150 of those students being fully remote students. So currently our days are a little quieter than I'm used to in the first 2 weeks of school. That being said, we have enrollments happening daily at Montello School, which presents its own challenges because now we're having to really figure out, do we have room in a cohort C? If not, can I call one of the other principals and can one of their teachers take a student if need be? And then which classes can we fit a student in so that the distancing is safe, and and are there siblings up at the middle school and the high school? So it's a much trickier situation when you're placing students now. And just to give you an idea of what that's like, today we placed 8 students this morning, and they will either start tomorrow or they will start Thursday. And our staff is always awesome about that. They welcome our students and they do it on really short notice. The teaching staff at Montello and our ed tech support have been incredible and just really risen to the occasion. And we asked a lot of them, and we're asking a lot of them, and we continue to ask a lot of them. They are learning and doing at the same time, and they're not just learning new teaching specific pieces. We're asking them to also use new electronic platforms and also adhere to new distancing and new safety procedures. And they're just super conscientious, and they just want to do it awesome. And they're anxious at times, but they come back to work every day, whether that's at Montello School or from their dining room table. And I'm just really, really proud of them. So, and you should be really proud of them too. So I guess those are the big pieces I would want to cover. Learned a couple lessons along the way. Have people in charge of certain things. So like if you've got new safety procedures and protocols, make one person the point person on that and send all the staff back to that person, so that we don't give conflicting messages. That was a really good one to learn in the first week. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's just been great. So thanks for letting us have our students and doing what we do. I think, thanks, Jana, for bringing that up. It's just, it's been awesome. And when I tell you it's been awesome, you also have to know that we take the responsibility really seriously. And it is anxious and scary at times, but that's what we're here for. And hopefully with the pieces we've put in place, we can continue to do that.
Thank you.
Bobby, did you want to add anything from an operations perspective?
So I'm going to talk about operations as a whole, and then I'm going to go over some notes that Alyssa Roman has put together. But I do want to recognize the entire operations team. Much like what has happened out in each building, it is the unimaginable. We have been asked to do incredible things, and every one of us has stepped up and worked collaboratively, from operations to teaching and learning to all of our building admin, to the LEA. It's been an incredible ride, and it's one that I am super proud of, and I stand before you in this entire community to say that we should be really proud of ourselves and all that we've done to get us where we are today. Alyssa has put together some notes on transportation and nutrition that I'd like to just pass along. As far as transportation is concerned, all students are adjusting to the new bus schedule, pickup and drop off, with some minor issues in the district. Issues being students' address was not updated in our Power School. The first day for cohorts A and B were a tad slower, as students were getting used to the new way of boarding and exiting buses. All buses have extra masks and sanitizer on board. We are also encouraging students to be compliant with mask wearing. So far, they're all doing that very well. Let's see, transportation. So that's good for transportation. Nutrition, she says, we're feeding students in person on school days. We offer remote pickup 5 days a week. We also offer students food to take home. Tuesday for remote, takes home Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for cohort A. Food sent home Friday for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for cohort B. Looking to get vans on Wednesday if possible to get students who need a delivery service. She says we might have to do an opt-in model for vans if needed. All food is individually wrapped. Most is delivered to classrooms or at key pickup points in the building. All food temperatures are taken multiple times a day. The district has also purchased labels, which we plan on putting on meals so families know when to discard food if not eaten. And then we will be serving, or actually since March 16th, from March 16th through September 30th, we've served roughly just under 500,000 meals. Overall, though, we are down in participation due to cohorts, so we are looking for more opportunities to work with community groups in the city. We are established with a root cellar and hope to bring on Maine immigrant refugee services this week. She is asking to give a shout out to all of our bus drivers, as well as Don Rancourt and Peter from Hudson, who are doing amazing things. She mentions that the nutrition staff has not stopped since March 1st, and she wants to give them a continued shout out of appreciation to keep the community fed since the pandemic started. They've been incredible, every single one of them. She says that she's very proud of the hard work and dedication of the Lewiston Public School Nutrition and Transportation Departments. And as a reminder, please look at the district webpage for the bus routes as changes are made as student changes occur. And as nutrition change options, we will work with school newsletters and district communication, meaning website and robocalls, to get that information out as soon as possible. That's it.
Dave or Josh, do either one of you want to share a quick status update of how things are going?
Good evening, everybody. I am Josh Bro, the Facilities Director for the school district. I am going to echo what others have said in taking this time to say thank you to the people who work directly with me. I don't want to say for me, but with me. My team has done a tremendous amount of work starting back in March to prepare schools to make them look as good as they've ever have been. And we've had some tremendous challenges along the way that we had to overcome to make sure that our most precious asset in the town was taken care of when school started back up. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to those folks. We started planning back in April, roughly, for this, and you don't know how it's going to go until it goes. And I want to say thank you to the administrators and directors on the back wall that appreciate the work that went into that. Thank you for that, and thank you for being part of a collaborative effort to make sure that we did as much as we could. That being said, we're going to continue to look for ways to improve things. We're always looking for a new or better way to make sure our schools are as safe as they can be every morning. So that's my commitment at this point. We've come a long way. It was pretty much mission impossible. We somehow managed to get there, as challenging as it was, but we're not going to stop there. We're not going to be happy with where we're at today. We're going to keep making improvements and make sure our buildings are as safe as possible each and every day for as long as we can, and we'll go from there.
Okay, I want to just give you a kind of a quick update of technology and where we're at, and we'll go from there. But I think a lot of the building principals did a nice job kind of talking about their buildings and so forth. At the high school, we have deployed Chromebooks to all of the cohort C students who are fully remote. The cohort A students got their devices today, and come Thursday, the cohort C students, cohort B students will get their devices on Thursday. So that'll be a great rollout for the high school, and I think we'll be in great shape there. The middle school due to some really amazingly hard work on the part of the administration at the middle school. They collected all their devices back at the end of the school year, got time to prep them and get them back out there. So they're doing really well. All students at the middle school have a device in hand to access their education. So that's a really great thing there. Elementary schools have been a little bit more of the challenge because, as you know, the ship came to the port and they said human rights violation and they sent it back. That was a bad day for Dave Terrio, I got to tell you. That was, and everybody else in the district. Obviously, the ship went back. I've been asking constantly since that time when the ship is coming back to us, and even as of today, and I have not heard about the ship coming back yet. So as soon as I get wind, I will bring that news to everybody, and I can only hope that it's going to be here in a reasonably short amount of time. Next, at the elementary schools, the cohort C students have been deployed a Chromebook. Cohorts A and B will be deployed a device after NASNC testing. Excuse me, after the new NWEA testing. That's my throwback to the high school, I think, Jake. So after NWEA testing, they basically will deploy Chromebooks to those students. It really will depend on how many devices we have as to how we can deploy those out to students and families. On Thursday, I hope, with fingers crossed, that the shipment that's coming in on Thursday is going to bring us brand new iPads for our pre-K, for kindergarten and first grade students. And that will be a real game changer for those grade levels for sure. It'll take us a little time to get our hands on those and get them inventoried and configured correctly, and then get them in cases and get them ready to go out the door. But that will be, I think, really an amazing change for us. And to be able to have those grade levels go one-to-one, I think is going to be really, really nice. On order are the shipment of Chromebooks for the elementary schools, the grade 9 refresh, and the ed techs. When we get those, I hope that we will be one-to-one from pre-K all the way up to grade 12. So that will really put us in quite a good position if we have to go fully remote at some point in time. Next, we also have some replacement staff devices coming in. We have some document cameras coming in. If you're not familiar with a document camera, it can be hooked to a computer, and literally it has a camera that comes out over, and you can put almost anything you want a kid to see, whether that student's at home or whether that student's in the classroom. You can take a 3D object and manipulate it so they can all see it. You can put a worksheet under it and work the worksheet so the kids are all watching you go through the worksheet, showing them how to do it, do out math problems, whatever. As my wife does at home, she has hers and she puts a whiteboard underneath it, a small whiteboard underneath it, and it's just like her chalkboard in the classroom. She can write right on that whiteboard, and as she's writing on that whiteboard, all the kids are watching her diagram a sentence or whatever in Latin, and when she wants, she just erases it and continues to write something else. So as far as remote instruction, that's a really amazing tool. And even if you're in the classroom, it's pretty amazing when the science teacher can do show the how to do the lab right up at the front of the classroom. Every kid in the class is watching it on the big screen, so they don't, in a COVID-19 situation, have to crowd around a desk to see the lab being done. Now they can actually do it, and everybody can see it clearly and so forth. So those document cameras, again, will be a huge thing for our teachers when they come in. We also are ordering pro versions of Zoom licenses for our staff. And so we're really just kind of collecting the numbers right now and making sure that we can get that order in hopefully this week and get those to us. New subscriptions, we have a new subscription to what we call Screencastify, which is actually a piece of software that allows teachers to be able to create and students create and edit videos and then share those videos. So as far as teachers creating lessons and they want to create a video so they can put it on their Google Classroom site, whatever, that's a pretty powerful piece of software for them to be able to do that. And it also works on Chromebooks. So it's very good for our students. We also just purchased a Swank K through 12 streaming license, which is kind of like a mini YouTube for teachers. Excuse me, a mini, what am I thinking of? It's basically what you do is it's like movies. And so basically what's going to do, it's like Netflix basically is what I was trying to say. And you see the little pictures of the movies, they can actually click on the movie, they can stream that movie and they have a license to do so. So that's kind of what that is about. And that is actually going to be a nice piece. And I think with all of that, I just got to, I want to give a shout out to some people as well. The principals and directors, when you tell them the boat just got sent back to China, that's not good news for them. And they were really great about kind of rolling with that and having to go ask their teachers to retool and so forth. So I appreciate that on their end. I want to thank my staff. I have some technology support specialists that are just absolutely amazing and have worked extremely hard to try to get all of these devices ready. There are basically 8 technology support specialists, and they have to kind of make sure that 9 buildings in our district all have what they need and that they're supporting them for all of their tech issues. So it's pretty amazing that they're able to do that. When we are all said and done, and we are pre-K to 12, 1-to-1, that same staff of 8 technicians will now have to support 5 more grade levels of students using devices 1-to-1, and along with the staff and so forth. So it's a big load, and they've done an amazing job doing that. Next, I have 2 people that I just could not say enough about. My network administrator right here, Lucas Haig. Lucas is behind the scenes guy working to make sure our network is up and that things are functioning the way they should be. And also working hand in hand with him is my systems administrator, Abner Goodwin. You don't hear about these guys much. They're not the ones that are out there in the schools that you see every day. They're the ones working behind the scene to make sure that everything works the way it should. And there's not a day that comes by that they don't get thrown a new curve, because when you talk about tech, you talk about tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And tier 1 of those, hey, try restarting your machine. It worked great. But when you get to tier 2, it's a little more challenging. And when you get tier 3 tech support, those are the guys that get thrown the hardest things to solve. And they have to dig in with their knowledge and their experience and try to figure those solutions out. So those 2 guys, I couldn't do it without them. They're amazing. Also, tech integrators in each build. We have at each level, Jason Rublin at the high school, Sarah Irish at the middle school, and Jeff Paget has the task of 5 elementary schools. And they are absolutely amazing. They're the ones creating the cheat sheets. They're the ones creating some tutorials for staff, videos, and so forth to help them through some of the training that they need to be doing right now. And lastly, when I was doing my master's degree, I heard about a phrase, and it was called "pay it upward." And when I heard that, I started thinking about that. A lot of times the employee doesn't really want to single out their boss because somebody thinks they have an ulterior motive for doing so, but I'm going to risk it. I got to say that during this whole thing with COVID-19, Bobby has been absolutely amazing at supporting us in operations. She supported me immensely. And I got to tell you, some days it was probably a great challenge for her to be supporting me, because with everything coming my way, with everybody asking me things, of course, my stress level goes up. And I got to tell you that she was very supportive, and she also kind of refocused sometimes me when I needed to be kind of thinking about some other things. So I got to give her a great big shout out, because through COVID-19, she's done an amazing job as well. So I want to thank you very much for letting me have a few moments tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Assistant Superintendent Paquette, do you want to share anything?
Sure, I guess so. I'm sitting here thinking about who to thank, and everybody's thanked a good number of people that need to be thanked, but I can thank them again. First and foremost, our building administration have worked tirelessly to make sure that students, staff, even those of us who work at the district level, if they're not able to carry out what we need them to carry out, then we're not going to be successful, and their teachers and students and families need them to be there for them as well. So that's a big shout out to them. My team covers a big landscape, if you will, much like Bobby's. Sue Williams, who has single-handedly organized lots of the professional development with support with many of Dave's team for the professional development. Jenny Derrigan, who is our grant coordinator, she has been working diligently on all of the grants that we need to have in place, that we have had for years and years, and then we've thrown in all of these COVID-19 grants as well. So she's helping manage 3 additional large grants for our district.
One of those I did speak about last week, I believe, was the day programming grant, which will offer opportunities to families, opportunity to have students have support during the days that they're not in school. And there's more information to come on that. So I need to give her credit for that. Our ELL and special ed department is working with our building administrators to make sure that the programming in the buildings can be done successfully and students get what they need. None of that is done without bumps in the road, but I think that we're working collaboratively to make sure that those things happen. There's many more members of my team that are helping with our homeless youth, as well as our pre-K team, as well as our computer science team and our after-school programming, and as well as Darrell Spence, who is working on and making sure that students have access and families have access to all of our new programs that we're using, and working with Dave and his team to make sure that those things are ready for us to use. So I would say that that's where we're at. We're still working on some things. We're not where we need to be. We have devices to continue to get secure for students and staff, as well as get some of those programs up and running. But we're working as hard as we can and as fast as we can, as collaboratively as we can. So yeah, I think things are going very well.
Could I just add, I'd like to thank Karen for all that you've done to get us to where we're at right now. Not only has your team worked so hard, and all of us have worked hard, you have too. So I want to recognize you for everything you do.
A couple other things I just want to add, because I know they've come up in other conversations, but our MiFi devices, which are wireless cellular versions of internet for people at home, the families that we've been able to identify or that come to us with a need, Dave and his team has been able to provide those so they have wireless access at home. Also, his team's working hard on some tablets that the state was able to provide to make those potentially ready for use for students. Those have some filtering concerns. They're working hard on those. But when we came to the table after we got some guidance at the end of July, and we knew we need to get kids to and from school, we knew we need to provide them nutrition, we knew we were going to need to be ready for a hybrid and or remote model depending on what happened around us and decision making. And we were going to need to be able to get them back home safely and provide those supports throughout the week, social, emotional, curriculum, growth, development, you name it. And with the training and supports and all those other components, safety comes first. And right now, again, 1 week and 1 day in, I'm not counting everything before it's been too long. We're doing it. We're doing it. And the excitement in the buildings, you'll hear me use this term once in a while, but it's undeniable. When you walk into a space and you see the kids doing their thing, it's very exciting. There's one group of people, and I would say all the thank yous that came out, I would say ditto. I don't want to run through another whole list, but there's one group of people that I want to specifically say thank you to that haven't been fully mentioned yet. That's our school secretarial staff. I think our school secretarial staff are the heartbeat of our schools. They don't function unless that person answers the phone and can direct that call, the printouts, the copies, the institutional knowledge is just unbelievable. So I want to say thank you to our school secretaries, but also everybody else that's been mentioned, and maybe some of those who are doing a lot of work that didn't get mentioned. But again, it's taken everybody. It really has. And we have amazing people here at Lewiston. It's been great. Anything else that anybody wants to add? All right. Any questions?
School board questions? I have a quick comment. So is it really just this past weekend or the weekend before? The group I work with did a school supply giveaway. One of the principals mentioned their crayon delivery was late. Come and talk to me. We had leftovers. We might be able to help fill that temporarily. I'm not a crazy prepper, but I get there sometimes. And this has certainly been horrible fodder for that, this whole COVID disaster. Part of me was very much, why are we sending children back to school? Oh my God. Slowly but surely, every conversation like this, every meeting in here where people are genuinely thinking about the children first, makes it a little bit easier for me to breathe. And if it's making it easier for me to breathe, I can't imagine how much easier it is for the parents. I also used to drive school bus, so I was hyperventilating a little bit when we were struggling with drivers. I'm glad to see things are going okay. Hopefully people are still looking into applying to be school bus drivers, because if I can pull 2 jobs at once, I might be the key word. But I'm really glad to hear all the updates. Makes it a lot easier to not feel horrible about sending children back to school.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to the middle school. We have 2 remote learners at our home, and it's been so structured, so fantastic. He always knows what's going on. You guys have done a really good job. So thank you.
Mr. Madras-Collins.
Yes. So I want to start with a question that is in relation to the staff member who have been quarantining because of potential contact. And that is the district prepared to promise students, staff, and community at large that under no circumstances will staff members be asked to leave quarantine early in order to fulfill work-related duties, potentially exposing our students, staff, and community to further COVID-19 spread?
I think that we've already, at least to date, and we've had a number of situations pop up that we have to call main CDC and look at the guidelines about. And so I think that would be a decision of the school committee, to be honest, in full. Right now, the guidelines read that there's some room for flexibility there. And what we do is, today's situation, for example, Amber and I were in contact with the teacher that was involved, and we asked a number of questions, and we want to make sure that staff member had everything they needed from us in a supportive way. And to understand the exposure, the potential exposure, what the staff did in that space, what that was like for them, and then trying to find that thing that's the right thing to do in that moment, being thoughtful of the staff and also the students and their safety. So that's where I think that work happens. I know that it took much of today as we work through some of those items. But I don't know that will answer your question in full, other than that we will follow the guidelines, and certainly we're working with not only the LEA, but with teachers to say, okay, what was this situation? Because there's so many different factors that play into every individual situation. But we want to understand it as best we can, understand the teacher's comfort level and where they're at due to whether they were exposed or not exposed, and where that landed. And then we work with the CDC to help make those determinations. And again, the CDC is operating off of a place of being as safe as we can as well. So that's been the relationship so far.
So my initial follow-up to that is that you recorded in the Sun Journal saying that that staff members would be, if they had an exposure under CDC guidelines, they would be quarantining for whatever the period is, or until they tested negative, or however it is that's working, unless they were fulfilling an essential function, and we couldn't provide a replacement. And I guess it's possible that this is just a school committee decision, in which case I'd like to flag this for discussion at the soonest possible date. But I think that the most essential job that we have is to keep people safe. And so, I don't want to be taking people out of a medically necessary quarantine because we can't find a substitute. I'd much rather just say, we're going to work around that, or we're going to have to close the building until that person comes back if they're so indispensable. But I think that it's important that we strictly observe those guidelines and not provide exceptions in the case that someone is unusually essential or indispensable. I also want to ask about.
Can I respond to that? So first, we haven't told anyone.
Okay.
Anything
No, I mean,
other than the
that's not
guidelines. So this hasn't happened. So I just want to be clear that hasn't happened in any way. we haven't told someone you must stay at work when they should be quarantined or anything to that effect. I would also say that we are absolutely following all the guidelines from the Maine Department of Education and the Maine CDC. And Karen knows and Bobby knows, I've been on the phone with them quite a lot in the last 6 school days, just checking on situations as they arise. And another group of people, and I know we mentioned it earlier, when I read Wendy's statement, our nurses are phenomenal and they've really done a good job with communicating and parents communicating to them. And then all this filters upward and we stay in contact with people to make the right choices.
I also have some questions about the positive test today, or positive test last week that we found out about today at McMahon, and just sort of trying to track us through how this process works. I guess my first question is why the student was in school. Is it that they were not showing symptoms until some portion of the day, or did the family not do the proper pre-screening as the district just asked folks to do, or how did that happen?
I guess for starters, you said last week. We didn't know last week. We became aware of this morning before Ms. Eliason was even in the office yet. And she was very responsive to that. And she did incredible work today. So she's behind me here. Thank you very much, Ms. Eliason. There's some variables that come into play. And the student came to school, began to not feel well, as reported, and asked to see the nurse because they had an upset stomach. And the nurse flagged that as an indicator of a symptom for COVID. And so there's a shift I think I want to share too, because the question is that when a student went to the nurse before, say, I have a sore throat, our nurse might look in, give you a cough drop, call home, maybe look a little deeper to see if maybe there's some indicators of like a strep throat or something like that. We're asking our nurses right now to call home and see your physician. We're not asking our nurses to do that level of inquiry from a medical perspective. If a symptom lands on that sheet for the pre-screening, they're asked to go home. And we're asking parents for their continued support for that. And parents have been very good about it as things have developed. We still want to push the pre-screening. We want those things to be checked at home first. That's how we keep our community safe. But our nurses have done a great job with that.
And it's my understanding this was the student's first day of school, correct? And was only there for a short period of time?
Yeah, the student came in, so they were cohort B, so that would have been their first day, and they were, Ms. Lysa, what time do you all start roughly?
8:40.
So about 8:40 they start, and the student, this particular student gets a ride to and from school, at least it did on that day from mom. And it was after 10 o'clock that the student was not feeling so well and was dismissed by the nurse, and mom came to pick her up by 11:15.
That sounds, well, for one thing, I just want to say, I'm glad that it sounds like that wasn't a failure of pre-screening, that just, sometimes symptoms pop up partway through the day, and that's just how it goes. And so I'm glad that worked out that way. I understand that the district is identified their immediate classmates as needing to quarantine for 14 days. Is their teacher also quarantining?
Not at this time. No. And we had a good discussion about that, worked with the teacher to talk about their level of exposure, what their distancing was with the student. They happened to be wearing all their PPEs and doing hand washing, not being in that close proximity with the student at any point during the day for any duration of that 15-minute window, which is defined as that close exposure, and working with the teacher on their comfort level. From a perspective of human resources, we care about our people. We want to take care of them. So, today's conversation was really about, we have your back 100%. And what do you want to do? Because you have some options here. We'll support you any way that we need to. The staff also has members living in the home, and we were thoughtful of that and had a discussion around that. So really it's about that full context of the conversation. All of these situations we have found are very different and have their own kind of pieces of information and facts in them. So we just try to balance that as best we can.
Okay. I also want to ask about how the student got to their classroom. Is it possible that they touched surfaces or doorknobs on the way to their classroom? what kind of, what can we say with certainty around that?
So I think there's always high touch surfaces. Our facilities staff do a great job with wiping those high touch surfaces with more frequency than we used to in the past. And those are those components of just how we're going about doing what we can in our schools.
Okay. So it's possible that that student would have made contact with high touch services outside of their own classroom, whether that's maybe, I don't know, a bathroom or a door or a railing or something like that.
Yes,
Okay.
it's there or the grocery store or
Right.
Dunkin'
No,
Donuts
of
on the way
course.
in, or
Of course.
there's lots
Yeah,
of
yeah,
places
yeah.
that things could have been touched.
No, absolutely. And I also want to ask about, did any of the students in their class take a bus home from school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Would it be safe to assume that, I mean, with all due respect to Mr. Collins, that it seems like a lot of those questions probably were all addressed by Ms. Elias and yourself and probably the CDC immediately once the situation arose, and that I could assume with very much confidence that every single situation will be handled with that amount of diligence, that we don't have to really dig into the weeds on every instance. I mean, I would assume, is that correct? Is that, because I have full confidence that you guys are taking care of, you know, what you need to do, and also that the CDC is also giving us probably word for word guidance on what we should be doing in regards to, you know, the students, the high contact touch and everything.
Yeah, so I think that's a fair statement. We are making it our priority. I can't speak for other districts around us as far as how they're going about this, but what we built with our management team and with our response team is this flow of information that goes right up. And so while they're trying to run their buildings with all the kids in it and staff and teachers are doing their very best, it starts, I think, with me. I drop everything. Bobby can say this firsthand. We were in a meeting this morning talking about some items for the week. I think she was mid-sentence when the CDC called me, and I just blanked my screen on Zoom and picked up the phone because that's the top priority.
Yeah.
And in that protocol, just so people know if they're watching, in that protocol, it's me, Karen, Bobby, Josh. Jason Fuller, our athletic director, is also on that response team. He's a great person for that because of all the protocols he's had to live for student athletes since July. He's very familiar with the language and the guidelines and the phases. Wendy Burgoyne, our head nurse, who's also part of that. I think I mentioned Josh, but I didn't. Josh, obviously from facilities, is part of that. Might be missing one person. Of course, Bobby and Karen. But that's that immediate team, and we're communicating things right out. So, for example, today, to go from this is the situation we have, it was minor edits to a letter that we've already written and drafted and reviewed, that we can make the corrections we need to it to apply to the situation, and then immediately get that to translation so that we can have things to our ELL department who helps us get things interpreted so that we can post them, publish them, share them in all the languages that are necessary. And right now it's about 7 languages. So yes, the due diligence in that protocol and that process is, I've got guidelines memorized. But the CDC has been great. And the nurse for the state of Maine that works directly with the DOE and the CDC has been wonderful. Today I was in contact with 3 separate officials regarding this one situation, and they were all very prompt, very informative, and provided the level of detail that we needed to carry it out.
Thank you to yourself as well.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
A couple of things kind of showing academics. First of all, I just want to thank all the building administrators. I know I went to a couple of schools before the vote and was really impressed with all their hard work. So I was glad to see it come to fruition. Just want to say for the record, I've heard a lot of positive things about the ELMS school. And my daughter's in it, and it's been absolutely fantastic. And some of the elementary schools were able to provide just strictly online, just being strictly online where they don't have to intermix with the cohorts at the same time. I've heard nothing but positive things. It's been fantastic. I guess my question would be directed to Mr. LeBlanc. As far as people who are in cohort C trying to get kids fully engaged, I mean, I know you presented, said there's a lot of challenges. How are we gonna overcome some of those challenges so kids who are in cohort C feel fully engaged? Because when I'm finding out, it seems like it's being addressed right now. It's almost like, especially a kid with an IEP, if they're not able to follow along, to be kind of self-pacing themselves, it's gonna either fall on a parent that happens to be home, or they gotta wait all the way till office hours. So, besides on Wednesdays, is there gonna be some sort of assessment that goes on to go, hey, this is not really working as a whole for cohort C, so maybe we should adjust our plan? And how's that look to start getting kids more fully engaged at cohort C?
Well, actually, we're doing two things in that because we clearly recognize that because of the content at our level and because of the nature of cohort C, that was going to be a struggle, specifically with any student who may require some additional assistance. So one of my assistants and my two teacher coaches have set up a process which, and right now, training ed techs to be available to engage and reach out to these kids on a regular basis, not just on Wednesdays, but also during the rest of the week. And it's a balance of both special education, educational technicians, and regular education. And part of it's being overseen by Tammy Thibodeau, who's a regular educator, and the second part of it is being overseen by Melinda Karen, who's a special educator. And our hope is within the next couple of days, we are having a meeting with that staff on Wednesday of this week, which is the week that we do professional development. And we're hoping to get that up and running. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it will be 100% efficient right out of the gates. But certainly, I think we've got a good plan in place to begin to reach out to those students, if not on a regular basis, once or twice a day, at least close to that with our ed techs. The second thing we're trying to do is we're trying to engage them in more of a face-to-face encounter with these students by using Zoom and other technologies. One of the problems we've got at the high school is that we have a limited bandwidth. And if you have 110 teachers, which we do, and they all try to use Zoom at the same time, I don't know, Mr. Terry, if you want to address this, we have some serious concerns that the whole system will crash. However, that aside, we're trying to get this select group of teachers and ed techs to use Zoom so they can actually get a face-to-face with these students. So those are the two things we're trying to do initially, particularly for that purpose, to try to engage those students and to try to give more specialized support. Does that answer your question?
It does. And when do you expect that to kind of start rolling out, so to speak?
What's that, I'm sorry?
When do you expect that to kind of start rolling out, so to speak?
I'm hoping we'll get the initial part of that later this week. I mean, like I said, we're going to be working with people on Wednesday, and some of the training we're doing with them is ongoing. But my hope is we'll be making some initial contacts with students probably on Thursday or Friday this week, and hopefully we'll expand it more next week.
I want to piggyback off of Mr. Physic. Thank you for asking those questions because we have had some issues today just trying to navigate that. And I think we have a student who is very social and he's at home now. And how do we get that social aspect still? First year in high school, and we talk about the social emotional well-being of these students, and I find that that's the downfall of what's taking place. And that's why I think that however the middle school has done their online remote learning is, I wish it could have been copycatted so that high school could do the same exact way. There's a big difference between our eighth grader and our ninth grader and how they're engaging with their classmates. So I wish we could do something there.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to chime in with some gratitude, and I was a member who was pretty unyielding on wanting to stay remote in an effort to minimize risk, but when the committee makes a decision, going along with that, and just so impressed with the ways in which this district has pulled together to make this happen, because I do believe kids being in classes and having that enrichment is incredibly important, but wanted to make sure that everyone knew what we were getting into, and that we were able to pull it off. And I hope it continues in that manner. I did have a question. So Ms. Gish of Geiger was talking about the challenge of tracking attendance, especially in Power School. And I was just curious about what expectations are being set about attendance. I think another member had previously brought up that attendance was really a priority of the previous administration and celebrated with the monthly best attendance. And I just think the conditions have changed a lot. So I just wanted to hear if that expectation is being set at a building level, a district level, and what that might be.
Is being taken at morning meeting for our remote students because they do all have a device. So that part's pretty straight and clear. The trickier part comes when if they have a small group scheduled for later in the day and maybe they don't attend that, or it's vice versa. Like they may not show up for morning meeting, but they're showing up for their small group instruction and they're doing all of their work. So we're working with families to try to make that balance, asking like, why aren't they making it to morning meeting? What's stopping them from getting there? Setting that expectation that they are required, they should be available from 8:30 to 2 every day for their learning, just like if they were in school. So if they have a small group instruction, that they are available to take part in that. So some of that is just really right now, educating the families on what those expectations are for remote learning. And getting that schedule. Like right now, it's the first few weeks of school, so it's a little bit different. They're going over, just like we do in school, they're teaching the expectations and the protocols and how to log into Seesaw or Google Classroom. And they haven't really gotten into those smaller groups, those small group direct instruction type learning. So it's a work in progress. We're meeting with families. Our remote teachers, their parents are coming into the school. They're helping them get on. They're kind of showing them through, walking them through it. So it's really, we're trying to track both things. So we're trying to track attendance and we're trying to track that participation and engagement. So I think that's where it becomes a little trickier for our remote kids. It's a little more straightforward when they're in school because they're there or they're not there. Or they show up late or they're dismissed early. So how to track that? So if they don't show up for morning meeting, but they do everything else, are they considered tardy? So those are just some of the kinks that we need to work out to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay, that's super helpful. And I had one other question, and sorry, Cindy, it's for you again. But you had mentioned there were remote teachers who are working from the building. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have one grade level, one classroom at every grade level that is remote. Just because of the number of students, we have about 125 students that are cohort C. And we didn't have that same number of teachers that needed to be remote. So we have some teachers that took on that challenge of being a remote teacher, but they're choosing to teach from the building. So they don't necessarily have to be home for medical reasons. They like being in the building and being able to work with their colleagues. So they're sometimes working from a space in their class in the building or from their classroom if it's available.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much for fielding both of those.
Anything else? Oh, Mr. Botman?
Jake, I just want to thank you personally, and Karen and Bobby, and each one of you in these schools for basically pulling off the impossible making the impossible possible. I braced myself this week to see what, what to expect. I only got 3 comments all week long. And what's interesting through all of this process, and I almost heard it across the board from everybody, is innovation, learning to do things a different way, and asking, is this something maybe we should take a look at incorporating on a regular basis? So I would be very, very interested in seeing a tabulation of ideas that could come from this, that we could invest in to make changes on a permanent basis. There's a lot of things I think need to play out still, but I think there's a lot of possibilities that I'm already hearing. Very quickly, the 3 concerns, I'm not going to get into specific, but rather ask the question of the scenario. Number 1, the buses. When the kids are on the buses, and we have a group of kids that huddle in the back of the bus and take their mask off, how is that being addressed?
So we actually had that last week, and it was addressed by the school that the kids attended by going onto the bus and having a conversation with students. This was reported by a member of the public to our transportation department. And so the only kids that should be sitting together in a seat like that have to live in the same home. And so if people are seeing those kinds of things, we do want to know so we can help our drivers who are already working very hard to get kids to and from school safely. And the mask should be worn on the bus. There were some kids that first, actually, I think it was the second day of school, I think it was Wednesday when I heard the concern, that they were pulling their mask down while they're on the bus talking to each other. And again, that was shared with us so we could go on and talk about that social responsibility and share that with the students. And so we'll continue to improve and get better with that.
Are there supervisors on the bus or just the bus driver?
Some buses have monitors, some do not.
Number 2, in the case of McMahon, when a child is diagnosed, how fast does information, once it's confirmed, get to other parents in the school with regards to their children? And do the parents have the option to change their situation given something happening at a specific school? Do they have the option to go remote at that point, to pull their child out? Or are they basically committed at this point, and how is this going to work?
So that's a great question. So as far as how quickly the information moved this morning, we had a little bit of a complication connected to CDC. They did a great job. I think we did what we were supposed to do, but the name that the student has on the enrollment for Lewis Public Schools was spelled differently by the doctor's office. And so when they checked the case to confirm, the names didn't line up. And then there was a little bit of delay there. But we did our diligence and CDC did theirs with trying to figure out, we really have to figure out if this is the right case. And so that was good. This morning was interesting in that it was the parent who, and I'm very thankful for this, that reached out to the school to say, this is the situation, and here's the latest. So it's great, and we're encouraging parents to make that phone call. Even if your student's home sick with a sore throat or a symptom, we need that phone call so that we can be monitoring those numbers and those situations in those pockets. So there was a little bit of a delay this morning in that, not terribly. And I would say, I don't know when I can go check emails, but was it say 10:30, 11 that we had that full CDC confirmation and the list of names of students that were impacted. So around 10:30 this morning, and then we're ready to communicate very quickly, and we didn't sit on it. Once we had it, we sent it, and so we just wanted to make sure we were confirming that we had the accurate information and all the facts that we could and share that out. And then part 2 of your question was around people wanted to change their student placements. So my initial point to that would be, please work with your building administrators. So if you have a concern about your student staying in that particular cohort, whether it's hybrid or going remote or vice versa, we need to work with building administrators because we only have the staffing to do so many things. And I'm not saying we can't be adaptive, but what I can't do is ask a teacher who has 22 kids right now in a cohort section to take 35, because it just becomes too much of a load for them. So we may get into situations where we have to see if there's other teachers who want to take on a remote class, collapse others if they're shrinking. We're actually also hearing from families the other way. Hey, the first week went okay. Can I move my kid from remote back into the classroom? And again, we're looking at those same numbers. What's the caseload? Can we do it by grade across schools, across district? So I'm not saying I won't be involved in some of those conversations, but I want to start with the school because our principals and our directors, they know what they have for availability. And they do share that with us. I know I can speak for Connors that they've got a grade level each, a remote teacher of each grade level, but they're watching those numbers very closely. If they have new enrollments or kids who want to switch in, it's going to get to a point where Don's asking too much of one teacher for a caseload perspective. So we're trying to find that balance.
The last one is actually comes from the kids themselves. I had a chance before the meeting to sit with 6 high schoolers and ask them how it was going. Everything is positive. With the thing that stands out is the remote learning. Some confusion in terms of what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to be doing it. What is the direction given to the kids to get the answer? Who are they going to? Is it homeroom? Is it specific teachers and principal? Is there someone set up in schools to address these remote situations?
Yeah, so I'll start the answer. I'll give principals a chance to answer that as well as a follow-up. As it relates to high school, because kids go off into a spider web of different options depending on their pathway. There's thousands of classes literally that kids can land in the schedule. And so it's hard for them to create a cohort of kids that this 20 kids hypothetically we would have these teachers. Every one of those classes, those kids move to a different teacher set. And they're not going to be with the same 20 kids that they had the last class with. So because of that, it can have a different kind of feel than the middle school has, where that's a team of teachers working with the same cohort of kids. Larger part, there's still some movement, but larger part's the same group of kids. So high school students, if you're having confusion, you should be communicating directly with your teacher. The assigned teacher for that class is your best starting point. And I would also say that we're a week and a day in, and at the high school, some of the kids with grade 9 transitions, it wasn't everybody jumping in the first day. So it takes some time to establish these routines. And so kids, once they figure out their logins and how their teacher works, you figure out those different components of it. And remote's not for everybody. I can't emphasize that enough. If we had the resources, we would have all the kids in front of us if we had enough space. Teaching and learning is just a dynamic that, boy, you need people involved with that. In the screen, you can do pieces, but it's just not the same. And I think that will be a challenge for us. We're going to continue to get better, but that would be a challenge. So the short answer is I would have students check with their teachers directly about those routine things. And I don't know if Ms. LeBlanc wants to chime in on where students should go if they have questions about their remote access at the high school.
Yeah, I think the place to start is with the teacher, but we have 4 people identified that specifically would do that. One of them is if it's a true technology issue, if there's a problem with the computer or whatever, that would be Jason Redmond, who's our tech integrator at the high school. And then I have Tammy Thibodeau and Georgia Valley and Kirsten Prass, who are the ones that will help students with issues like they can't get in and access. Let me just tell you one of the things that we dealt with today. And I said it up there when I was at the podium, and I don't think, I didn't go into a lot of depth, but a lot of people don't understand what asynchronous instruction is going to look like. A lot of people, I had a father call me today and said, my son logged on, but the teacher wasn't there. It was just this classroom with assignments and that. And I think some folks misunderstood that when they went to remote learning, that they were it's going to be like they were pulling their computer up and it was going to be a TV camera into the classroom and they were going to see the teacher doing live instruction. And that's not the way it's set up. What it is, it's a static classroom with assignments and tasks and things like that in it. And then on some occasion, the teacher will set up a Zoom so that there is a face-to-face. So I think part of the issue is there's been some confusion with folks, what cohort C was going to look like. And I think, quite honestly, and I want to go back to the conversation I had with Mr. Physick, I'm not sure that the cohort C is as well developed as I'd like to see it be. And that has kind of been my direction over the last couple of days to say, we need to do more to enrich that. So I think there's a couple of things. One, people's expectations were different than the reality. And two, I think we need to enhance what we're doing more. But I do have people dedicated to address those issues with kids. And the 3 phone calls that I dealt with today, I sent them to, well, I sent 2 of them to one person and 1 to another. And to my knowledge, from following up, all those issues were resolved.
Can I say something about elementary? Just, and from an elementary standpoint, I think some of the cohort C stuff has actually been a little harder than it's gonna be for our remote hybrid kids because, Mr. Terrio had explained how we have the computers because there's NWA testing, but that's just one part of it. But another huge part that we really struggled with in the spring was like our kids hadn't been taught how to do these things on the computer. So we have the computers, we have the kids in front of us, so we're teaching them how to log into the Chromebook, how to find what you need to in CSON, how to go through those parts. So that's gonna make things a lot easier at home. See, like some of them are already home, so we're, kind of seeing those same things that we had in the springtime. But, that's how you get kids to do, things successfully is you teach them and model and then practice. So they will be ready when they come home.
I want to make a quick comment about the bus situation, having been a bus driver. I had the opportunity in my very short career bus driving, 4 years, seems like a long time and it feels like when you're driving, but it's really very short amount of time. Part of my time I drove in the summer the spec ed bus, which I was really lucky, short bus. I had maybe 12 students. It's a lot easier to manage 12 students with one person than it is on my full run, which was a 40-mile round trip. I was anywhere from 51 to 64 students, depending on who was on that day. And one person, 54, 55 kids, that's a real stretch. I know there's much fewer kids on the buses now because of distancing and whatnot. That's still a lot of kids to manage, and a bus and traffic and everything else. I hope we're still pushing and putting out there that we need monitors, we need drivers, because that's what's going to make situations like what happened happen less. Kids are kids, and especially when things are new or they don't understand, it's good. Having eyes on helps.
Anyone else? Agenda item number 4, public input. Members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now or on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff, personal matters, or a student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comments shall be directed to the school committee and be brief, not repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Before starting, please state your name and address. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone on the webinar that would like to speak?
No hands raised.
All right, agenda item number 5. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second. Future items on that.
I'm sorry?
On the next business meeting. Yep.
Oh,
The person's hand did go up.
oh,
You already-
okay. We have one public speaker. Kira, can you hear us? Because something is using an older version of Zoom.
Promoted for camera so we can hear it. How's that sound for a minute?
Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, Kara, can you hear us?
We can't hear her.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Fantastic. So I'm a teacher at McMahon, and my name is Kira Soromato. I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm really thrilled with the way our nurse, Melissa St. Pierre, and our administrators, Amber Eliason and Michelle Russell, handle things. I do understand that the Maine CDC and the Maine DOE have put out guidance that teachers are essential workers and can theoretically come to work after an exposure. But I do believe that the school committee could take a more strict stance than that, and I would highly advocate that you do so. We have a lot of families with many siblings across classrooms, across schools, and the risk of an outbreak is high because of that. For example, I know that I share siblings with at least 8 other teachers at McMahon. Some of those families have 3, 4, 5 children across the district. So I would highly encourage the school committee to take up that consideration and look at a stricter interpretation of that guidance so that teachers with an exposure are not coming to school. Unfortunately, the reigning research does say that the longer you are in a room, even if you're 6 feet away, even if it's not considered significant by CDC guidelines, that risk goes up the longer you are in a room with that person in an enclosed space. So that is what I would like to request from the school committee, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
There's a motion by Tanya,
Do we need to
seconded by
redo it?
Kieran.
Okay. All right, Ward 2?
To adjourn, right?
Yes.
Yes.
3?
Yes.
4?
Yes.
5?
Yes.
6?
Yes.
7? Myself, yes. Miss Wright?
Yes.
Thank you very much.